Welcome to the Focus Hoops 2021 WBBL Cup Final Preview Show. I have a slightly different segment here for you now. I'm going to be joined by former Manchester Mystics junior women's head coach Greg Mpofu, and what we are going to do is look at some video from this year and past years and just bring you a little bit more insight from a coaching point of view of what the respective coaching staffs and the players are going to be looking at as they build their game plan for tomorrow's final. So I'm going to welcome in Greg. Good afternoon, sir. And how are you doing?
How are you?
Yeah, good. Obviously, Leicester Sevenoaks, as I said, we're going to dive into some video shortly, but just your overall thoughts about the final and what are the key things you're going to be looking for in tomorrow's game?
Yeah, at the moment, teams in the WBBL with a third or a 2A being BA London Lions. So we're probably going to get the best game possible. And, oddly, this would be the first time that Sevenoaks would win the cup if they do. They've won everything else in the WBBL. They've been the dominant force over the last 3 seasons. So, of course, they want to keep that run going. They've got 6 previous winners, and the 7th would be a nice sort of topping.
For sure. And obviously, these two sides haven't met in a final last year, which is probably a rarity in WBBL, but they obviously met in the respective competitions at an earlier stage. So a recap about that for those not aware. Last year, it was the WBBL Cup quarterfinal, where Sevenoaks beat Leicester on the road 81-66. Obviously, Sevenoaks going on to win the final against Durham. Last time these two sides met was the WBBL Trophy semi-final, again on the road for Sevenoaks in Leicester. Leicester 72, Sevenoaks 66. That was nearly a year ago today. It was the 15th of February. So it'll be interesting to see how both teams have adapted. Obviously, not playing each other in a year is a little bit unusual. And as you will see in other episodes, we have spoken to both head coaches about that. But for now, we will get onto some tapes. So, Greg, we'll start with the Leicester Riders defense. Obviously, dynamic this year. Held 6 of their 9 games. They've held teams to under 50 points a game. When you put on the tape, what's your just initial takeaway from that Leicester defense?
Yeah, it's the season for Coach Jesper Sundberg. They've led the league in their defensive production throughout. It's been clear to see when you watch the games, but digging down into the details, watching the tape, what I would say is Leicester's approach is that they want to thrive in chaos. They want to cause chaos and they thrive in chaos. They're active, 5 players connected, everybody's involved in the defensive possession, there's no passengers. They're looking to get their hands involved in the passing lanes especially, and just make it very difficult for the other team to settle down and get into what it is that they do. And while it's true that, some of the teams have been quite compliant by having very static offenses, that's also a result of the psychological effects that the Leicester Riders defense has had on them.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll put on some tape. And the other thing I think is that it's a team that obviously prides itself on defense, and they are willing and will make multiple efforts on every possession there is. So, Greg, as we turn on the tape here, just talk to me a little bit about Kate Oliver. In this clip, it's 3 deflections and a block at the end. And just talk about the impact she has as an anchor of that Leicester defense, protecting the paint and the rim.
Yeah, she's a key part of what they do. It allows the guards up top to be super aggressive. They're playing up the floor 91 feet. She's involved in the ball screens as well. She's not sitting back hiding. She's getting involved in every action here. So what that allows them to do is just cause that chaos at the point of attack, as we spoke about before. And it just causes a little bit of uncertainty for the other team, not knowing where the pressure is going to come from and what they're going to do on the next rotation.
Yeah, and it's these multiple efforts that have made the top defense. I mean, even that pass there, you can say it's a good shot, but really what Leicester trying to do is the better shot is another pass away. And actually, if Newcastle made that there, Newcastle get a wide open look. But it's that intense defense, the shot clock starting to wind down, that really causes issues on the on that end of the floor. And really, you talk about a crop of guards, as we're going to see here, that they just know how to get their hands on the ball, and they've got so many players in the guard spot that can cause turnovers, cause deflections, and let their offense get out and run.
Yeah, what they're doing, I call it digging. They're digging for the ball, whereas some people swipe for the ball. You're inviting the referee in, and anytime you do that, you're likely to give up a call. But what Leicester do very well is they dig for the ball, and invariably, even just a deflection where they don't come up with possession is enough to interrupt the flow of the offense.
For sure. And this clip, me and you talked about it off air, is one of the best defensive clips I've seen in the WBBL for a long time. So Hannah Robb on the defensive end, and I was talking to Coach Jesper Sundberg about this in our interview we did earlier today of how she's flying around. And I'm just going to let people at home watch this clip because it's something I've said not really seen very often.
Yeah, so Hannah Robb's done a fantastic job there of following their defensive game plan, their defensive scheme, which is to keep the ball on one side, whichever side that is. They're not worried about the ball hand, the strong hand, or anything like that. They want to keep the ball on what is now the small side of the court and be aggressive in doing so. They'll sell out to do so. And she's getting her body in the way. Wherever you want to go towards the middle, you're looking at Hannah Robb, number 6 first. And then anything you try to do to the baseline, then they get to start to get the extra bodies in the way and the rotations that are happening behind that. So, the natural thing that happens then, even at this high level, is the first thing you're seeing is the defense moving before you see your own teammates. And that just causes that certain level of uncertainty.
Yeah, and obviously there was maybe some surprise initially when Chema called Hannah Robb to the GB squad ahead of really Holly Winterburn in what many people's eyes were. And when you watch clips like that, you can see what Chema's seeing from a defensive-minded coach, that Hannah's going to put in possession after possession. And I know the synergy stats aren't great on the defense of the floor. It is a hard thing to track, but Synergy's got Hannah Robb in 28 shots against Hannah Robb this year. Teams have scored 3 times, and that shows how much effort she's putting in on that end of the floor. And because they've got so much scoring depth, Leicester, that we'll come on to, it's the fact that someone like Hannah can basically sell all out on the defensive end, and that's what causes teams so many issues.
Yeah, she's essentially this season become what we call a 3-and-D player. She's not someone that you can afford to take your eye off on the offensive end because that shot is going up very quickly, and more often than not, it's going to come down. And on defense, that extra energy that she's not having to use in the way that she maybe had to for Caledonia, she's able to express that energy on the defensive end and put in that extra shift that is really effective for her team.
Yeah, so obviously we're giving you a little bit of an insight there to the Leicester defense. Now we're going to get into a little bit more X and O specific stuff. So the key really is keeping the ball on the side, and they do an incredibly good job, the guards, of doing that. So let's just have a look at some of these clips, Greg. And again, it starts with the off-ball pressure here with Holly Winterburn denying Beth Sarson. But once she gets here, just talk from a coaching point of view of how good that position is to make sure that Sarson cannot use that screen and is forced towards the baseline and where Kate Oliver currently stood.
In practice, when you've got the extra time and you can, get into the details of what it is that you want your players, this is exactly how you want it to look. But I can even go back to maybe 3 steps before this, as she's trying to sort of disrupt the handoff. She does something very subtle in knowing that, a handoff is effectively a screen. She goes to jump and duck underneath the handoff to meet her on the other side in that same posture where she's going to cut off that side of the floor. So that's very heads up thinking by Holly Winterburn there. So as far as Beth Sarson is concerned here, there's only a limited amount of court space for her to play in, and it gets even smaller the closer she gets to the big there, which is Kate Oliver. So you've got length on one side and length on the other, and that's sort of like the perfect combination defensively. And on the way here, you can see that they're covering the reverse passes, which is the perfect way to escape an ice situation, and they've got that covered. The only pass you're left with is a skip pass, which is a gift for any defense.
Yeah, for sure. On this clip again against Oakland's just a couple of weeks ago, a perfect example. Holly again in a great position. There's absolutely no way as a guard you can use that screen. It's physically impossible from the way Holly's got a body position there. And Leicester has started to do a job as the season evolves of being better at reading these passes. And here you'll see Christina Gaskin just come in from the foul line and tip the ball away. And I think Leicester end up with a shot clock violation here. And that's really textbook defense. That's exactly how Leicester will have drawn it up and how they managed to execute it on the floor.
Again, same situation. They want to get hands in there. They've got hands coming into the ball, which is making the pass itself difficult to make. And then on the rotation, they want to get that steal. They want to go the other way before you set your defense. And here on this one, Hannah Roberts decided if you're going to go anywhere, you're going down the short side to Chelsea Shumpert. And that's her left hand. She's a dangerous player going to her right hand side. Maybe not quite so effective going left. And that's a perfect situation right now for the Leicester Riders.
Yeah, and this is really the unique thing. We've seen that teams will ice the pick and roll before, which is a coverage we've just shown. But this is basically icing the ball screen without the ball screen being there. Leicester really look to overplay and keep the ball on one side of the floor. Now, they will allow this pass to non-shooting bigs on the reversal, but because of Hannah Robb's positioning here, it's this pass is going to be long, it's going to take time, and there's time for the bigs to recover, for the weak side to reset, and if they need to be denying the pass from joiner out to the other side of the floor, they've got time to do that because of the positioning being so almost exaggerated.
Yeah, and with a player, the kind of threat that Chelsea Shumpert presents, they're loading up to the ball to make sure that she's not going to be the one that kills them off the bounce straight away. And on the weak side, they know their responsibility. They know that it's 2 guarding 3 or 1 guarding 2, if that's the case. And that first rotation is the key. They anticipate they'll get there at the same time as the ball, never a step behind.
Yeah, and this possession against Cardiff, that here I think there's 2 seconds on the shot clock, and you saw that whole possession that Leicester never allowed the ball to get into the middle. It was basically stuck in a corner for Cardiff, the whole offense, and that is a perfect shot. It's what you want to give up as a defense, a contested 3 forced in the shot clock without having any ball rotation, and it makes everything else easy. And you can just see there that this is why Leicester's defense has caused so many team problems this season.
Yeah, and it's a weird one where you can see the psychological effects of what the defense did to Cardiff there, because looking at that clip, there was one key vulnerability in the Leicester defense. I'm not going to point it out. That's for them to figure out. But I could see it, and it was a little bit obvious. I'm obviously not on the court having to deal with that. I can see it much easier from where I'm stood, but that's what it does to you.
For sure. So I suppose the question is how will Sevenoaks attack this? If we get into the X's and O's, and obviously Sevenoaks kind of know what's coming. This is Leicester's kind of bread and butter. The system's evolved slightly, but really this is the same thing we saw last year from Leicester. So we will now have a look at some of the things Sevenoaks will do. And really the key is, from what I see on tape, is Sevenoaks trying to attack the drop of Kate Oliver when she is a little bit too deep.
Yes, and as we said, the key to attacking an ice defense is getting that space off to get a quick jump shot, or if you can't get that, using the pass reversal to expose the weak side of the defense that's already outnumbered. And here you can see wide open on the catch, and that's a shot she can make very easily.
For sure, and we'll get into logistics a little bit earlier, but again, it's middle, trying to keep the ball on the middle. Now you can't ice, now you're in a different coverage, and obviously Kate isn't as mobile, and Sevenoaks are going to have a smaller lineup tomorrow, so they're going to really it'd be interesting to see if Leicester keep Kate deep or if they have to change the coverage slightly from what they're normally familiar with, because Sevenoaks are going to have extra shooters on the floor because they are small.
Yeah, and it may well be tempting to keep her deep, but the reality with Sevenoaks lineup is the player that Oliver's going to be guarding may not be a roll threat. She'll want to stay out on the perimeter. So I don't know if she wants to risk that catch and on the reversal risk that overload on the weak side either. So she might have to lift out of the paint. It's going to change their rotation slightly, but the activity they have on defense, there should be someone there to have her back.
Yeah, and this was a little interesting variant, this clip. So again, Kate is deep in the paint, and Leicester, whether it's by design or whether it's just a read, I think it's Jen Ashton on the ball, is really trying to make this pass difficult. She's helped off Renee Bush onto reversal, and Sevenoaks do a good job. And now you've got Kate on a closeout, and that's a tough situation. And I'm sure that's something that Sevenoaks, with the spacing that they're going to be able to have tomorrow to attack closeouts, is going to be a key thing for Len and the team.
Yeah, it's going to be the second and third action. The first action in their office is not going to give them much unless they catch Leicester sleeping, but that's probably not going to happen. So the second and third action, like you get here, are going to be the keys to any success they have.
Yeah, and we'll get on to Rene Bush a little bit later, but clearly you can't go under that screen. And we've seen similar things this year with that Leicester defense. They have struggled at times with shooters, so it'll be interesting. And again, it's forcing out, and it's that pass or the action away from the pass that's going to be crucial. And obviously missing someone that is a consistent 18-foot jump shot in Julia Koppel here. You can see it. 2 or 3 clips of her just knocking it down. It's have Sevenoaks got that next person up. So is it perhaps a Janice is going to be setting this screen tomorrow and she's more capable of hitting a shot like this? But it's something clearly Sevenoaks looked at going into last year's games as an area they wanted to exploit.
Yeah, Janice Monacana has probably a bit more range than a Julia Koppel, but the key is going to be the guards. The guards have to be aggressive in attacking that two-man defense and drawing both defenders to themselves to make a play for their teammates. And if they find any sort of looseness in that, they'll be able to attack the rim themselves, maybe get Leicester into a little bit of foul trouble. If they're able to do that and at any point sit Kate Oliver down, that's going to be a huge equalizer.
For sure. And really from one team's ball screen offense to another. So we're now going to have a little bit of a deep dive into Sevenoaks, and the Sevenoaks ball screen has developed this year. It's something that you noted well on the defensive end, that they've added another layer with Lavinia Da Silva in terms of their hedging and what they've done. So just before we get into the clips, just talk about how you see that the defensive ball screen coverage for Sevenoaks has evolved from what has typically just been a switch or fight over situation to now adding that third dimension.
Yeah, they still incorporate the switching of his like size-wise for their guards up on top and some of their bigger wings. They'll still do a little bit of that, but having Lavinia Da Silva in there has allowed them to be very aggressive. She's mobile as a big, so she's able to move her feet and stay in front of guards. But instead of using that to switch and try and have a guard in the ball, they use her to blow up the action and really, really chase the ball handlers off their spots. And it effectively, for a couple of seconds, becomes a trap. And if you do pick up the ball, they may well stay in that trap. But what they're doing is they're not allowing you to create any sort of advantage going downhill off the ball screen.
Yeah, and obviously, before we show these clips, again, Lavinia Da Silva will not play tomorrow. But we decided to leave these clips in because these two teams meet in the league next week. So, and from the conversations that I've had, it looks like she will be available next Saturday for the game. So we'll keep these in just so obviously these are not directly impacting tomorrow's game, but will perhaps be the wrinkle we see next week. So here we are, obviously, Greg, just initially some of these hard hedge clips that you've shown with Da Silva in particular being impressive this year.
Yeah, so they're taking a slightly different approach to the ball screen than Leicester Riders, but it has the same sort of effect in keeping the ball out of the middle. They're using the athleticism of Lavinia Da Silva to just blow up the action and make sure that you cannot get to the middle and really being aggressive with it. And it changes your mind as an offensive ball handler. You see her coming and you might not want to go in that direction. And as their rotations are happening here, the only good pass that's left is one across your body back to where you came from. It's a very difficult pass to make accurately.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Sevenoaks is the continuity that they've got is they can mix things up almost on the fly. So for one possession, they can go from what we've seen here to what perhaps is more bread and butter for them.
Yeah, and that's been the key to Sevenoaks' dominance over the last 3 seasons. The core of their squad have been together for a very long time. They know each other, they know the schemes inside out, and they understand how they want to play defense. So even here, as you see Kat Carr rotating out to take the charge, she's covered. She's covered on that baseline pass, which is the obvious easy one. So it kind of leaves Lisa Coop with nowhere else to go.
For sure. And again, it's the mix of things that they can do because they've been together so long that really makes it difficult, because they can literally just mix it up on the fly and they've got the confidence to do it. But the one mistake they can make, they make here in this clip. So done a great job early on, but then they fall asleep to the pop. Here it's Joyner popping in. Okay, Joyner isn't a great 3-point shooter, but teams around the league know she can make it. And Leicester certainly have the interior firepower for their bigs to stop, pop, and make threes.
Yes, and I think they kind of got caught in the sort of the conundrum of leaving a player like Praise Agareba there close to the rim to rotate out to Joyner. And in my teaching, I would say make them make another play. That pass, if Joyner tries to make it to Agareba, could well have flown out of bounds. But the fact is, you cannot let a player at this level have a wide open catch and shoot. And if that is Kate Oliver, it's likely to go in.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is we say Kate Oliver, but Christina Gaskin shooting the three at a really high clip this year. Ella Clark, everyone knows, can make the three, and maybe Whitney Allen's the one that can't to that degree. But Leicester have really got so many perimeter scores that I would expect at some point we'll see the pick and pop in play. But it would just be interesting to see how this balance evolves with popping and rolling, because Leicester are going to have the interior advantage tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's the thing with for me, Christina Gaskin may well be the key to the game for Leicester Riders. You expect the big time players to show up, the likes of Holly Winterburn, the likes of Kay Oliver, and such players. But with Christina Gaskin, her numbers have been astronomical this season. She's shooting 100% effective field goal percentage. That's unreal. That means no matter what's going on, by the time she shoots the ball at the end of the game, it's almost as if she hasn't missed. So if she's up to that kind of form, she's going to be one of the players that might make a difference to Leicester win or not.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned her. And we're gonna flip this round again. So we've just looked at Sevenoaks defense and how effective they've been. Well, we would imagine on the whole, and our kind of prediction here from Focus Hoops is we expect with the lineup Sevenoaks have got that they will switch a lot tomorrow rather than go with the hedge. Because they're going to have similar players on the floor. There's no real true big on the floor for Sevenoaks. So the question is how Leicester Riders are going to attack the switch. And as we're going to see here now, they had some success last year against Sevenoaks' switching defense. And really, some of it was scripted, but a lot of it was just experienced players making great reads on the offensive end of the floor.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point of why you go through your reps through the ball screen. You want players to be able to identify situations and know what the best thing to do when that situation arises. And, the amount of time that the riders spend on the floor, they're going to go through a handful of those situations every day in practice.
Yeah, and just the first clip here, just so when we roll it on, that it's Ella Clark. I think it's Ella Clark, I believe, is going to come up off the screen, and Christina Gaskin just mentioned that she's going to make the read here. Realizes that Sevenoaks are a little bit sloppy on the weak side with the switching. Janice is switching up, so Gaskin's free, and all it needs is that recognition to see it, roll hard, and suddenly she's at the rim and makes a tough finish, but it's one she'd expect to make when she's open.
Yes, and switching is very effective. It has its place, but what I would recommend for anybody that wants to switch, you have to be aggressive with it and you have to do it with contact. The least you can do is disrupt the timing of the other team.
Yeah, and here they do. It's a perfect body. I think it's Hinrich Storrs has just come up off the screen. But what she does is recognizes the vulnerability of the Sevenoaks defense, which is really in the paint. Okay, Janice and Kat are there, but they're worried about the second action. I think it's Jen Ashton on the baseline that's going to come up again. What they do is just see it, and almost like the same clip is just dive to the basket, and suddenly it's another uncontested layup. And they're really difficult because that's textbook defense, make the contact, but it's then finishing that of make contact and now getting onto the right side, protect the basket, because if not, you can give up those type of opportunities.
Yeah, it's the reality of anything involving the screen is that you have to surrender something, and it's up to the other team to make you pay. And in these situations, Leicester just happen to make them pay.
Yeah, and again, just putting the tape on from earlier this year, Oakland's a couple of weeks ago switched. Christina Gaskin switched on to Lizzie Harrison, and Ryder's patient to find the extra pass from Kate Oliver to create a better angle, and that's what Leicester do. They're really patient at finding these opportunities of not necessarily just throwing the ball in, and here patient again, swing it to get the high low, and again, Tia Freeman does a pretty good job. It's probably exactly what Nottingham want her to do in that situation. She's forced Gaskin relatively deep. Her foot's really on the top of the charge circle here, but that extra pass is a little bit closer for Whitney Allen, and it's a textbook high-low, and again, another layup. And if Leicester can continue to do that against Sevenoaks tomorrow, it's going to be tough to stop because they've got all the threats from the perimeter as well.
Yeah, as a coach, you know the things that you want your defenders doing, and if they do them and the other team gets a score, you kind of have to live with the results of that, and just hope that you make it a little bit tougher on them next time down the floor. So that's a good job of execution by the Leicester Riders right there.
And obviously, we know both teams can post up well. We've seen that, but really, is there anyone with Sevenoaks being a little bit smaller on the floor? Is there anyone that you think that Leicester will look to take advantage of? As you can see here, first game of the season picked on George Jones pretty much from the opening tip. Leicester yet to get a field goal, and instead they go to just a little post-up set, and Holly Winterburn will love that matchup if she can get it regularly against the George Jones. So is there anyone you think that Leicester are going to look to exploit, perhaps for post touches for their wings as well?
Yeah, and when they do go to that, it's going to be from their bigger wings as opposed to their bigs. And in that way, I do get the feeling that they'll probably pick on Renee Bush a little bit. She's going to be the smallest one out of the lineup. Tiani's a bit short as well, but she's got a bit of strength to her. She's very stocky with it. Kat Carr is actually very smart in defending the post. Even when she gives up a little bit of position, she knows how to sort of leverage that to her favor. So I feel like Renee Bush might find herself a little bit exposed in that situation.
Yeah, and I think the other one that stands out is I'd expect tomorrow, Len being a little bit short in the rotation, that we may well see someone like Asher Andrews get extended minutes. And obviously, she keeps developing. She made a big three in the cup final last year, and Sevenoaks was kind of struggling towards the end of the first quarter. And Asher came on, Len gave her opportunity. She knocked down a corner three, and that really gave the Sevenoaks bench some life, it felt like, last year. So I wonder if she plays, and if she does, I think Jesper will certainly be looking for a matchup like this for the likes of Holly, for Gaskin, and even for Hinrichsdorf, who can all post up.
It could well be the situation. I suspect that Len would use it in a situation at the end of quarters, maybe to give someone like a Renee a break going into a quarter break or halftime, just to have that little bit extra rest. And, she's not going to be involved in too many possessions where they're going to be able to target her on the defensive end.
Yeah. And obviously we talked about that end. So the other thing Leicester will do is attack the switch using the bigs, and Kate Oliver's a matchup nightmare normally for Sevenoaks, and we've seen them double team in the past, but now they're going to be small. I would expect personally that we're going to see probably a lot of double teams on Kate if she can get deep position.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of fronting, daring the offense to throw the ball over the top with someone ready to prowl underneath. If that situation happens, then you're going to have another rotation underneath that. So it's going to be, a very keyed in situation for the Sevenoaks defense if they're going to be able to defend the post tomorrow.
So right, again, we've got a little bit of film on this. So this was obviously in the game last year in February. And that's a really tough spot. So if we just go back on there, that Kate dribbles out the double team, and now Leicester decide to send a cutter to the basket. And again, you've talked about what's the next right play. Well, you've got a good 3-point shooter and Brew Elmore on the wing. You've got probably the less experienced Leicester Riders player cutting to the basket. But at the end of the day, Garrido Perez just recognises that split second late, and suddenly it's a layup. And that's the ones you don't want to give up when you're trapping, is really you want to force the ball to perimeter and ask people to make open shots.
Yeah, and I think the key to that one was the preparation. I don't think Garrido Perez prepared for that situation well enough. As the double team is rotating towards Oliver, she had to be flat to the baseline there. So whichever one of those passes she picked, she'd be able to see both. And if it was to Bria Elmo, she'd have to sell out and fly out to her and make her have to make a play. But in that situation, she kind of gave herself up a little bit.
And this clip's another really fascinating one to me, that Oliver and Janice, and what Kate does, kicks it out. Janice plays great defense here. But now Leicester have got action, and suddenly it's just a natural double team. And the thing is, Kate's got size, length, and she's a good passer, and she reads this perfectly. And Cathcart doesn't do a lot wrong. She's in a decent position, but ball flies over her head and a wide open free again.
Yeah, that's the risk you take when you double the post. There's going to be someone open on the perimeter. The key to that situation, as you said, is can you make a good pass? Can you get a shot?
Yeah. And again, Sevenoaks have doubled earlier this year. So just some clips from a game against Newcastle where they doubled Coop. And again, you can see this is where now know they're coming, they can be prepared. And the thing with Sevenoaks is they mix up where they double team from. So that makes it a lot more tricky for the offensive team to prepare for what's coming.
Yeah, it's not going to be that much of an issue, I don't think, for a player like Kate Oliver. She'll be patient with it. She's not going to want to score within 2.7 milliseconds of catching the ball. She'll wait to see what's going on. As you said, she's got the size and length to be able to make a pass out if she's in trouble or if she just sees a better play. So she's just going to take her time, let it develop around her. If she's got the shot, she'll take it. If someone else has, then she'll pass it out.
I'll just come out of that. Yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see how Sevenoaks decide to double. Do they double on the catch? We just saw there that on the clip against Cardiff that they waited for the dribble. And these are all decisions that now Len's got to think about, and he's got a little bit of time to prepare. Is what does he think is going to be best for the team? And then it's just managing to execute multiple times, because eventually Leicester are going to have time to go, right, this is how they're going to do it. And now it's this classic chess match, really. Is Jesper's going to make an adjustment, then Len will make an adjustment, and it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds, knowing that we probably are going to see nearly every post catch while ever doubled.
Yeah, we might be giving away how the sausage is made here, but I think that's going to be the key. Is that if I was in this situation that Len Bush is in, I'd probably use a lot of deception in that way. I'd stunt a lot, wait for the dribble, force a pickup off the dribble, and then maybe recommit to the perimeter where you're not able to now get closer to the basket, maybe force a repost. The idea there is that every pass is a potential turnover. Just force them to make another play every time they get the ball.
For sure. And really, obviously, we expect a relatively low scoring game. These games normally are. The last final of these two played, I believe, was 60-55. So obviously these little things matter, because if you're trying to keep a team to 60, you can't continue to make those same mistakes. But I know you wanted to highlight one Sevenoaks play in particular on the offensive end that you think will cause some problems for Leicester, first of all, but then also talk about how she's developed, especially in the last year, of adding more bows to a game, and that's Renee Bush.
Yeah, for my money, Renee Bush is the key to whatever Sevenoaks are going to get out of tomorrow's game. In past conversations over the last few weeks, I've said to you, I think she sits in like the perfect sweet spot of any player in the league. Sevenoaks have two players in Cathcart and Tiani Clark that you have to pay attention to, especially off the dribble. So, help will rotate and they will find Renee Bush. They just know where she is. And she doesn't need a lot of time or space to get her shot off. And the way she's shooting the ball this season, she's sitting at, I think, about 82 or 83% effective field goal percentage. That is incredible at volume as well. So she's in the cup averaging about 21 points per game, only shooting the ball about 11 times during each game. So she's going to sort of bend the Leicester Riders' help side a little bit. It's a pick your poison situation. Are you going to stick to Renee Bush and offer that little lane to the likes of Clark and Carl? Or are you going to still commit to that help? And you've got someone like Bush that's ready to let the ball go very quickly as soon as it hits her hands.
Yeah, and I mentioned it, and you can see the full interview up on the Focus Hoops YouTube as well. Me talking with both coaches about this, but really, Renee was a difference maker again in the game against Cardiff. Sevenoaks were struggling offensively. It was early in the season, but Renee goes, I think it's 7 of 8 from 3. And we'll show some of these clips in a second here. But she is someone that can change the game. And as we said, she's added new things to her game, and that's a real excitement for her personally.
Yeah, I made a comparison in a conversation with someone yesterday, and I kind of stay away from male-female comparisons, but this one was obvious to me. The closest I could find was to say she's kind of a Clay Thompson. She doesn't need a lot of the ball to make a big impact, but she is still capable of making plays for herself. She just doesn't need to do it that often with the players she has around her.
I just mentioned about Cardiff, but she's also instrumental in this Nottingham game, which was the cup semi-final. Of course, Sevenoaks winning by just the 2 points.
Yeah, so if we hold the ball here, the way Nottingham want to play defense is that they want to pack the middle and really protect that. A little bit similar to what Leicester Riders do, but they're a more extreme version of it. And the fact of the matter is, with Renee Bush, you're late now. Now you're late to closing her out. Because as soon as this ball's on its way to her, you have to be there because she's got a very quick release and she only needs to see a little bit of the rim. So if we run from here, we'll see just how quickly she's able to get this shot off and punish that one pass away help.
And again, it's transition freeze, and talk with Jesper about this in the interview, that turnovers have been a problem for Leicester, and they turn it over. Rene's the one that can really fly to the 3-point line. And even in this clip, if we just roll it back a couple of seconds, you can see what the idea is here. Mo Lundqvist at some point recognises Chelsea has got Lavinia De Silva in the paint. And really what she wants to do here is get back to Lavinia and kick Chelsea out. Problem is, the recognition just happens a second late. And you can see they're now both under the paint and Rene's wide open. And that's the type of shot she's going to knock down easily.
Yeah, and again, in that situation, they were late on the release of the pass. She's made the court impossibly big for the defense there. Understandable that, yeah, you've got a guard and a big in the key in transition. You don't want that catch and easy layup. But again, there has to be better communication for someone to identify where the 3-point threat is, probably the biggest 3-point threat in the league at the minute, to be able to get that rotation quickly and to get there and make sure that she's not just killing you within 4 seconds of them getting the ball back.
Oh, well, there's a controversial statement if I've heard one. And actually, it's a topic for another day, but Renee Bush versus Cassie Breen would certainly be an interesting discussion point about shooting. But yeah, no, but it was certainly interesting about Wolves. But let's just look back a little bit. We've talked about Leicester Riders keeping the ball on the side. And the one thing you can't do with a shoot like Renee, and in this case, Chelsea Shumpert, is leave airspace. If you're going to play this type of defense, you need to be closer, because if not, you're in trouble.
Yeah, Hiking's about 5 feet away from Shumpert there. That's plenty of space at this level. And you just want to be careful that here in this situation, that's daylight. You're not even able to get a hand up to contest that. It's so quick. And that's going to be the same with Renee Bush. And on this one here coming up, same situation. You want to know what it is that the person you're guarding is going to do. That's the scouting report. And even as the game evolves, you have to do a mini scouting report in your own head. So we cannot lose track of who has the ball in their hands. What's the rule, Mike?
Hand down, shots going up. And the other thing is that Sevenoaks have really evolved in trying to find Renee some looks. And this is maybe the most unique example I've seen. Don't know if it was scripted or not, but Janice catches the ball here. And look, if you're Cardiff, you're perfectly happy with how you're playing right now. So Wagstaff is just outside the charge circle. She can get across and help. She's not too far away from Renee. But all of a sudden, just the veteran leadership of Sevenoaks and knowing each other. Just watch Tiani Clark on sort of kind of that left elbow and Julia Koppel at the top of the 3-point line. Just watch as this evolves. And Janice throws a skip pass. Suddenly they both get themselves in position. Now maybe Koppel's a step slow, but can't be choosers. And suddenly, from what's gone to a great defensive position, you've given up a wide open 3.
Yeah, the whole thing just worked out perfectly for Sevenoaks, because at first I thought Monacanos caught the ball a bit too far out there, but it just worked out that, it made the situation so that maybe Wagstaff was attracted a little bit further over than she maybe would have been in a different situation.
Yeah, and Kat Carr, obviously, there's many bows to a game, but she is one of the best screen setters in the league because she's so adept at recognizing the angle she needs to set screens at. And here, Renee's coming up to the top, and Kat recognizes the switch, switches her screen angle, and again gets Renee a wide open look. And it's a theme of the Leicester defense that is something they have to contend with the same way they did here with Chelsea. But they're in a great position. Suddenly overplay it just slightly and effectively changing the angle of the screen. That time is just Chelsea stopping on a dime behind the screen almost and managing to get a free up.
That clip there, if we can go back slightly, I think something that I brought up back when we were looking at the Leicester defense is that Winterburn recognized that there was a handoff coming and she went to jam the handoff on the other side, which is it might have worked here, might not have, but that's a situation where now, because you're trying to sort of ice a handoff, you expose yourself into a little bit of a push off here and you're off balance. And that's all the time that Shumpert needs.
Yeah, and really, Sevenoaks haven't developed that, but here again, Kat Carr re-angling the screen. I mean, that's textbook to allow Tiani to skip the ball. And now this is where we talk about Renee adding to a game. Now she's going to get it. Potentially she can get a free off here, but what she does instead is she's more dynamic now and she attacks off the dribble in this case.
Yeah, that's the key to any player that wants to be a massive threat on the 3-point line is can you put it on the ball when they sort of sell out to get you off the line, and she's able to make a play there. She makes a very strong play in isolation there and really punishes Tia Freeman on defense.
Yeah, and reminder that was a one possession game in the semi-final, and again, attacking the closeout, getting all the way to the rim now. It's something maybe a couple of years ago we didn't really see much of. And that development for Renee is why she's in the GB squad now. And it's a really exciting step for her as her game progresses.
Yeah, that's, we saw bits of her hard work, over the summer as she posted her driveway workouts on Instagram, and it's not just something for the aesthetics of saying, look at me, ball is life. No, she's really putting the work in, as you can see there, some tough physical plays that she had to make there, and she's able to deal with it.
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap this up and we've looked at a lot of video, just from your point of view, what are some of the keys you're looking at to what will decide the outcome tomorrow?
Look for the runs. Whoever has the second run of their own is probably going to be the team that wins this game. And obviously that's going to be based on the small adjustments that are made by each team. The scouting reports that each team comes out with early on are going to be very precise. They'll know what to expect from the regular things that each one does. So look out for when each of them start to make changes and what happens after that.
So obviously these two teams play each other next week. Does that have any impact whatsoever on tomorrow's game from a coaching point of view?
No chance. This is for all the marbles. Both teams are going to go out all guns blazing for this one. This is for bragging rights, first of all. And the last team to win anything in the WBBL was Leicester Riders. They won the trophy just before the lockdown began. This was back in February, I think it was. And so they just want to continue having that feeling. And for Sevenoaks, they have been the dominant force in the WBBL for the last 3 seasons. Plus, there's been a little bit of extra spice on social media from some of their players concerning this game, with different circumstances that have happened around them. So they're going to want to, back that up on the court and turn around and look at everybody and say, we told you so.
Indeed, they will. And it will certainly be Sevenoaks, of course, the reigning cup holders. Sevenoaks, the reigning playoff holders. Leicester having won the last trophy against Durham in March at the Emirates to what ended up being the conclusion of last season. So it'll certainly be all to play for. And I'm sure on Sky, with Sky there, everyone's going to put on a great showing. And it should be a really good game of basketball that I expect will come right down to the stretch.
Yeah, the Sky production in the BBL has been fantastic so far this season. So I'm looking forward to seeing that for the WBBL. You're going to have 2 very familiar faces from the WBBL in Siobhan Pryor and Ryan Bailey on commentary. So it's an occasion I'm definitely looking forward to, and it's right here in Manchester.
Indeed, and unfortunately for you, you can't attend, but I know you'll be watching. So, Greg, thank you very much for your time. And to everyone watching at home, something slightly different for you, and hopefully enjoyed it. But please put your feedback in, and we'll listen to it, and we'll look to do some of these later in the season, whether it's for finals or big games as the season progresses. Me and Greg are going to try and jump on and do a couple more of these, as we don't have a lot of coaching to do ourselves at the moment with everything that's going on. So a little bit of different insight here for you, and we will catch you soon.